So, if you have not already watched the Crash Course Sociology video on stratification, um, I'll link it up here again just so that you can refer to it if you haven't watched it. One of the things that she does in that video is share with us four principles of stratification. And I make sure that we talk about that because I don't believe that that is in the textbook that we currently use. That first principle is that stratification is universal. It happens in all societies, but it's variable. It doesn't look the same in all of them. It is a characteristic of society, not of individuals. And that's going to be important for what we're talking about today in this video. It is persistent across generations. It's hard to break through. It's hard to impact the effects of stratification over time. And most importantly for this video, it's not just about economics. It's about values and beliefs. If people didn't believe the way that this thing works itself out, then it wouldn't last in the same way. It's not just about economics, it's about beliefs and values. Today, what I want to share with you is something called the Davis-Moore Thesis. Um, the Davis-Moore Thesis says essentially, the greater the functional importance of a societal role, the greater must be that reward. And that's not entirely a ridiculous thing to imagine. For instance, if it takes you, by easy example, a ridiculous amount of years to be a surgeon, which is very high on the occupational prestige list. If it takes you years and years and years of study and rigor and sacrifice to become a surgeon, then the reward for that should be great. And it takes you a very long time to do that because surgeons are super important in society. So the greater the function of the role, the greater should be the reward. What the Davis-Moore thesis suggests, in some ways, is that more certain tasks in society are more valuable than others. For whatever that degree of skill it is, that's the amount of education that you need to get, higher amounts of education, a longer time to get the education, more costly, more specialized education. So more valuable than the other things. Think about stuff that's super low on the prestige list. It doesn't mean that one's time isn't valuable, but we don't value the person who works as a stocker at a grocery store the same way that we value a surgeon in society. Social stratification, according to the Davis-Moore thesis, simply represents the inherent unequal value of different kinds of work. So qualified people who get those kinds of qualifications through their education and their time and their rigor, who fill those positions, are rewarded more than others. And on the surface, this makes total sense. It's not an entirely weird thing to imagine. But the criticism of the Davis-Moore thesis is that it ignores the way that the structure is operating in that way. So remember when we were talking about socioeconomic status, one's wealth that they can pass down through money, home ownership, stability, access, lots of things come with the kinds of wealth. It is the value of the money that you have and the value of the assets that you have is absolutely critical when we talk about the kind of education that one can get. And according to this very sensible way of thinking of things in the Davis-Moore thesis, the kinds of education that you get affects the kinds of occupation that you can get. And I don't want to figure out how to erase that. So excuse the fact that I just did the little funky scratchy thing. And then that is going to feed again to the kind of wealth that you can build. Clearly, or I should say income here. Clearly, the kind of education that you get is going to impact your occupation. If you go to school long enough in the most specialized ways to get the higher the prestige job, then it's going to give you the kind of income that allows you to continue to build wealth, things that you can earn over time and accrue in its value and your assets, and then pass that on to your children, for instance. But it then, in this case, this thesis ignores that this process is happening. It simply says all you need to do is just go get more education. If you get more education, for instance, if you spend more time building that skill, then you can get the higher prestige occupations, and those occupations are going to be valued more. They're going to pay you more because they're better or more inherently valued in society. And if you did the work to get it, then you should get the higher income. When we think about other stuff on that prestige table, for instance, the difference in value that you get for like college professors versus high school professors versus high school teachers versus middle school teachers and even elementary school teachers, the ways that we are not bothered by that belief system that education just gets you to a particular something, because professors need a lot of education too. Elementary school teachers need a lot of education too. And in fact, they have to continue in their training for a very long time in order to stay or remain eligible to be in those positions. The way that we sort of describe that away as to why do they not get paid as much? Why do we not value what it is they do as much? Then we say, well, that's very noble work. It is very noble, and you shouldn't be doing it for the money. Like we can shift the way that we think about it. And so the criticism of this Davis-Moore thesis is that it doesn't allow us to, one, think about the way that this structure is sort of perpetuating what's happening in terms of occupational prestige, and it isn't even easily applied to all the kinds of positions that we have in our society that we do value. We generally believe one of our general belief statements in our culture is that education is the single most behavioral indicator to experience social mobility up or down in our stratification system. So, in the United States, if you want to be socially mobile, we generally believe that education is the way to go. We value equality, and we believe that rising and falling in that stratification system is based on one's individual choices. Do you see how those two things are working? If you work hard, then you can rise or fall. But rise or fall over what? Well, rise or fall in the stratification system. Well, what is a stratification system? It's a ranking of positions, but we value equality. There should not be a ranking, but there is a ranking. And the way that you can move up or down in that ranking somehow is not based on the stratification ranking system that exists itself. It is somehow based on the kinds of individual choices that you make. If, for instance, you don't go spend your time in education, then you don't get the higher occupations that earn the more money, that earn the wealth. So we both acknowledge that there is some movement up or down based on your individual choices. And we somehow at the same time ignore that there is a structure that helps to determine whether you are up or down at any given moment. So in sociology, we care about those kinds of patterns or that kind of understanding in society because we know that there is a structure at play and that that structure affects a person's social standing, and it is not only created by society, but is supported by society. If we believe in the way that that inequality works, then we will perpetuate it. If at some point we have some problem with that inequality, then we will do things to sort of fix it. If we're not really interested in figuring it out, then we will just shift the way that we think, right? We will use another one of our value statements to help us understand what a position that somebody has. So, in that same video from Crash Course Sociology, and certainly in your reading, you learn the difference between closed systems of stratification, where the position that you're in based on your race or based on your gender, based on your parents' position, sometimes very much based in your religion and an understanding of your sort of descendant, what's the word? How you have descended from certain sort of religious or spiritual families, if you will, your right of birth. Sometimes that position is closed and there is no moving around. You are ascribed your position at the point of birth, and that is just where you are. Some systems are open. Our system is an open system for the most part based on class. And class, by definition, are the people who share similar status based on these factors like wealth, income, education, family background, and occupation. So, again, that social stratification system is a ranking of people. And if they're ranked by class, your position on that step ladder, up or down, is based on your class or your socioeconomic status, which is affected by your wealth, your education, your occupation, your income, and your family background. We believe that you should be able to move up or down. How do you move to the middle class from the working class? How do you move from the upper class from the middle class? We believe that there is a way to do it. Our value system, however, because we are a meritocracy ideologically, we believe that the way you do that is to put your time and effort into education, which is a personal choice set of decisions. You should be able to move yourself up or down. In so doing, we both acknowledge that there is a ranking system and then expect that people are somehow not affected by that ranking, and that is their choices to help them move up and down. There's a problem in that general thinking. So it's important for us moving forward, again, as sociologists and sociological thinkers, to remember that the society has structure, and those structures put people in particular positions, and it impacts what their life chances are. But because we are a society, we also have cultural understanding. And there's nothing that suggests that the cultural understandings make sense as it relates to the society structure. It's just that we have to navigate all of it. We have to understand all of it. So I think that's it for this video, and thank you for watching.